Okay, good morning, second hour. Hopefully this is working for you. Hopefully Miss Fisher, Miss Johnson helped you all. I hate that it has to be this way, but the Burtons have COVID. And so my goals today are to kind of fill you in on what this week's going to look like, what next week's going to look like, what March and April are going to look like, and then we're going to go over some content today that I don't think you've had a chance to really master. And hopefully I can explain it to you. So the first part of this video will be me explaining it, explaining my expectations and what you can expect. And then the second half will be basically lecture style, and it'll be me just talking to you. And so I'll try to go slow and I'll try to enunciate as best as I can, but I'm not going to like screen share or anything. I have my computer here. And it'll just be notes. And so just take notes the best you can. And I'll let you know very clearly when we're going to get there. Today we're going to be covering like big picture vocab, big questions that are going to be on the AP exam, theories that I need you to know, and then some basic vocab to where at this point, if you don't know the basic vocab, not the theories or questions, but I'll let you know the basic vocab when I get there. If any of the things that I get to you don't know, Houston, we have a problem. And so that kind of gives you a good indicator to let you know where you are as far as Unit 4 goes, and then we'll move on. Okay, so we were behind already when we left for winter break. The snow killed us, and then now my wife has COVID, and so I'm not able to be in school with you this week. And so no need to worry, no reason to be concerned, but I have expressed before how we're going to have to kind of kick it into overdrive, and it was certainly true then, it is more true now. And so we're going to finish Unit 4 this week, which I think we've had ample time to talk about it and learn about it. You will have your Unit 4 exam next Monday. You might be thinking to yourself, Mr. Burton's going to give us an exam on a unit where the last week of school and the week before we have not seen him. Yes, I think you are more than prepared. You have everything that you need. I really think that vocabulary exercise that y'all did is really going to help. And we're going to go through it together this week. One of your assignments today is going to be sending me things that you want to go over. And so that will be what I'm going to be talking about tomorrow on my YouTube. Subscribe and smash that like button. And then next week, we're going to start Unit 5. And so let me put this in perspective. This is the first week of March. We have March, April, and then the first week of May to cover 3 units. That is substantial. Fortunately, they're not as seismic as Unit 3 and really Unit 1 was. But Unit 5, Unit 6, Unit 7 will have to be covered before you take the AP exam, which will be the beginning of May. So that is a challenge. I think we're up to the task, but that's just letting you know where we are. And so this week we will finish out Unit 4. This is the week for you to ask, hey, Mr. Burton, I do not know what the core periphery model is. Mr. Burton, I don't really understand the difference between nation states and, multi-nation states and multi-state nations. This is the week to really go through that. We're going to get some FRQ practice this week, and hopefully by Friday we will. So we're not going to Zoom. It's Monday right now, but when you're saying this, it'll be Tuesday. Any of this week except for Friday, we will Zoom together on Friday, and that will be your day we're going to review together. That's your day to ask as many questions as you need so we can get caught up. We've done something like that before, and I think it really helped because you had the chance to, no stupid questions. You can ask the questions you need to, but it also gives other students around you to ask questions. You may go, I didn't know that. It's an unknown unknown. And so hopefully we can cover a lot of ground whenever we get there. Okay. So right now we're going to transition into some notes. So go ahead and get those out. I'm going to give you some time to get your notes out. We're going to be talking about the big questions that I want you to be able to retain and answer if it was an FRQ or a big picture idea for a multiple choice question. And then we're going to talk about some theories and models. We're not done with those for political geography. And then we're going to get to some basic vocab. So hopefully you're getting your notes out now. Okay. So the three big questions, I'm going to read them off of this page. This comes from the political unit review that we have gotten. These questions are on that resource I gave y'all last week or 2 weeks ago. That kind of gives y'all an update on how to study for Unit 4. So these are the essential questions. And so if I were you, I would write these down. The first one is, what social, historical, and economic factors have influenced modern political maps at various scales? I'll read that again. What social, historical, and economic factors have influenced modern political maps at various scales? Okay, so this is why I teach you ESPN at the very beginning of the year. You're able to look at a certain topic like a geographer, not just at the physical parameters of that topic, but you're able to look at the economic, social, political, and natural formations of that topic, region, whatever, cultural element, whatever. And so this question is asking you, what are the social, historical, and economic factors have influenced modern political maps at various scales? So social, historical, and economic factors. Historical, that's a pretty easy one, right? What historical factors have led to modern political maps at various scales? Throughout history, maps change whenever countries are added, whenever countries are overtaken, whenever countries are involved in some type of war, those maps change. And so historically, we just see, a map of Europe in 1918, or really 1914, looks a lot different than a map in 2021. And that's because Europe has endured 2 world wars, many civil wars, many breaking of states during that time. And so historical is the easy one. The social and the economic factors are a little bit more difficult. And so social, you could talk about the ethnic cleansing and the conflict that the Slavic countries of Yugoslavia dealt with whenever we watched the film Once Brothers. That was a form of ethnic cleansing, and we end up seeing that Yugoslavia as a whole was a state made of different nations. And when that happens, sometimes that ethnic those ethnic communities can really start to either form together and form bonded community like they did at the beginning, or have massive conflict. And those massive conflicts can eventually turn into war, but they certainly start at a social level. And then economics. I think the colonization of Africa is the best example that I can think of how modern political maps change at various scales. The reason why we have Africa as a map that it is today, with the boundaries and at scale that it is because of European imperialism and colonization. And if you're thinking to yourself, man, I really don't remember what imperialism is, that's a problem. So that would definitely be an economic reason, is that the European settlers, really not even settlers, the European conquerors wanted the raw resources and raw materials from Africa. And so by colonizing it, they were able to sketch out borders that aided them in saying, this is my part of Africa, this is yours, and those are the boundaries we know today. And so that is the first essential question. What social, historical, and economic factors have influenced modern political maps at various scales? Your second essential question, so this would be number 2. How do boundaries reflect ideas of territoriality, big word, and political power on various scales? And so basically, why do boundaries matter? How do boundaries, I'll repeat it again, How do boundaries reflect ideas of, I'll spell it for you, territorially, territorially, and political power on various scales. Why do boundaries matter? We've talked about the different types of boundaries. There's physical boundaries. Our boundary with Mississippi, for the most part, is the Mississippi River, and so that was a boundary that was kind of established at the beginning of the colonization period in our country. We've talked about so those are natural boundaries. We've talked about boundaries. We've talked about state boundaries. We've talked about disputed boundaries, but those definitely matter. We've talked about how boundaries can actually separate two two of the same ethnic communities, but they are separated by boundaries, and so sometimes boundaries can be difficult. There's also some cultural boundaries that are not recognized necessarily on maps or nationally or globally, but certainly divide a certain culture from another. I think of the predominantly Muslim believing people in the southern part of Spain. There is no like Spain and New Spain. It's just all Spain, but there's definitely a cultural boundary at the southern part of Spain. And there's different types of cities within and places within countries and states that have similar, not problems, but similar situations. You can think of Hong Kong. Hong Kong is certainly a destination that is located inside of China, but culturally and financially, is it China? That was one of your bell works a couple of weeks ago. And then your third essential question is, how has globalization changed the way people live? This is a fascinating question. This is a question that I've actually been thinking about a lot lately. How has globalization changed the way people live? Well, first we need to define globalization. The key word in globalization is global. And globalization is the spread of ideas, whether it be factors that are financial, ideas that are like culturally set, religion, anything that has a cultural trait or financial incentive or government political power that is spread throughout the world that has a global impact. So that's what globalization is. And so how has globalization changed the way people live? Well, first we can say that as the years goes on, globalization has increased. Maybe you can make an argument that it has decreased, but I think because of the use of social media, technology, and the accessibility to other countries, we can say that, our access to other things in the globe has significantly gone up as the years gone on. But the question that I've been thinking about a lot, which I think is related to this one, is globalization new? Is globalization a new idea? And when I originally was thinking about this, my instinct is to say no. Globalization, well, my first instinct was to say, yeah, globalization, like the globalization that we see today, where I can buy something from Asia and it is here 2 or 3 days later if I have Amazon Prime. Like that is like the peak of globalization. Or the fact that we have something called the United Nations, where a group of nations are decided to come together and kind of self-govern the world as it is its own nation. These are all pretty new. But the idea of globalism, not globalism at this scale, but the idea of globalism and the things that it produces are certainly not new. Some things that I want you to write down next to this question are things like the Silk Road. The Silk Road was a means of transporting goods and services between Asia, Marco Polo, to Europe. And they called it the Silk Road because silk was one of the fine materials that was brought from Asia to Europe. Things like spices and textiles were also brought from Europe to Asia and Asia to Europe. And we see that is a form of globalization. Tea was a big part of the Silk Road, and that's why if you look at European culture, especially culture in the United Kingdom, along with Chinese culture, both of those cultures rely heavily on the consumption of tea. and that is because of those early trades that happened with the Silk Road. There are tons of other examples. The transatlantic slave system, the triangular trade system, which was predominantly built on imperialism and slavery. That was established 400 years ago, And so this idea of trade and global influence, keyword global, is not a new thing. We might be progressing in it and we might be getting better at it, but it's certainly not a new thing. And so those are y'all's 3 big essential questions that for Unit 4, you need to be comfortable with talking about and answering. I just gave you a few examples. There are tons of other examples, but those are our main 3 questions, okay? So what we're going to move on now to is the models to know for Unit 4. And so this is stuff that you would put, like if you were doing a whole list of notes and models for AP Human Geography, this is what you would put up next to the core periphery model, the demographic transition model, population pyramid. This is where you would put that. But for Unit 4 specifically, what we're talking about here is these models are the best way for you to answer fully and answer totally an FRQ. And so, for example, if an FRQ is asking you to describe a certain, facet of political geography, pulling one of these theories out of your notes or out of your brain is a great way for you to fully understand the question as a whole, so therefore you can fully answer the question. But 3, show the reader of your answer that you fully understand the total concept, not just one specific example. And so the first theory that I want you to write down is the organic theory. Organic theory. This is probably your most common theory whenever you're talking about land development, hegemony, imperialism, power, or war. The organic theory is the idea that states need land in order to have conquest. A better definition for you, and this is the one that you can write down, is states need a living space to survive. States need a living space to survive. That's what I have written down here. And the easiest way for you to do that, write this down next to it. So organic theory is that states need a living space to survive. And the easiest and best way to do that is to annex weaker states, take over control of weaker states. That's the organic theory, is that states need living space to survive, and if you're trying to expand, the best way to do that is to annex weaker countries or weaker states. The easiest and best example of this is Nazi Germany. Nazi Germany was a it's almost like a myth nowadays, but Nazi Germany was a conquest was on the minds of Nazi Germans. Adolf Hitler had, and the whole Nazi party had this idea of the Aryan race. And not only should the Aryan race take back the land that was taken from them, primarily from the Treaty of Versailles in World War I, but they should also expand across Europe to get away from the dirty ethnicities and expand the clean and more powerful Aryan nationality. That's what they called it, the Aryan race. And so what they did was, Hitler, the way World War II started was Hitler invaded a place called the Rhineland, which used to be Germany, or a part of Germany until after World War I. And then he invaded Poland, and then that's when, what was it called? What was it called when, I'm trying to do this all in one take. Appeasement. That was when appeasement kind of ended, so they stopped appeasing Hitler, and that's when war was declared, and then eventually Hitler tried to take over, that he occupied France, and he tried to go on the Eastern Front all the way to Russia, which is a bad idea to ever invade Russia in the winter, ask Napoleon. But that's the organic theory, is that if a state wants to survive, you need livable space, and the easiest way to expand that livable space is to take from weaker countries. Okay? The next one is Mackinder's Heartland Theory. So let me spell it for you. So it's M-A-C, Mac, Kinder apostrophe S. So Mackinder's Heartland Theory. It's also known as just the Heartland Theory. And the Heartland Theory is easy to remember. It's the idea that a country needs an abundance of land to assert its dominance and to have power. Land is your most important asset in terms of the Heartland Theory. Is land-based power leads to domination. Whoever controls the heartland would dominate the world. Big question. What is the heartland? What is the most important piece of land in the world? This is an interesting theory because if you're a person who is from Great Britain, this land or the Heartland Theory would honestly make a lot of sense because your area, well, it is an island, so we'll get to that. But the United Kingdom hasn't been invaded in almost 1,000 years. And so successfully invaded. William of Orange, whole nother theory, or a whole nother historical lesson. But is that because the United Kingdom is the heartland? Is that because their land is so important? Or is it because of the water around it? Question to ask. Another big contributor to this theory is Russia. Russia obviously is our biggest country by land mass. And so if any country wants to dominate Europe or dominate Russia, they have a lot of land to make up for. And, that brings me back to the example of Hitler and Napoleon. Both of these European leaders both tried to invade Russia or the Soviet Union, and both failed. And is that because that Russia is super cold in the winter, or is it because their land is so important that it is just not to be taken over, and whoever controls that is the dominating country? And so that is Mackinder's Heartland Theory. The next is it's the Rimland Theory, but let me scroll up for a second. Okay, I'm going to spell this name for you because I don't know if it's Spycams or Spickmans. So it's SPYKMAN apostrophe S. So Spickmans, don't know. Rimland Theory, RIMLAND Theory, which is similar to the Heartland Theory, and that is that the seas is the most important aspect of land domination. So whoever controls the seas could rule the world. And this one has a lot of evidence to kind of back it up. We see the Spanish Armada led Spain into an age of imperialism that was basically very dominating. We see that England for a long time had the strongest navy, which led to them being the world power. The United States after 1896, after the Spanish-American War, was the dominating country because of their navy. And so all of these theories are why do countries want other land? How do they take other land? And what is the best approach for their country to dominate the countries around them and to access land that they want to? And so understanding those three theories are good. The next is the domino theory. The domino theory is super easy. Once the land around a certain country falls, the other countries are soon to fall as well. Nazi Germany is a great example of this as well. Once Poland fell, once France fell. If Hitler would have stayed in the western part of Europe, many scholars believe that the other countries would have fallen as well. And then the last one is the core periphery model, which you should know. And so those are the four models that you should be pretty familiar with for this unit. I'll repeat them again. So I have my cheat sheet. So you have the organic theory, the Heartland Theory, the Rimland Theory, the domino theory, and the core periphery model. And so these are all models and theories that you should be familiar with in order for you to totally understand political geography as well as boundaries and why countries do the things that they do. All right, so let's go over some basic vocabulary that is going to be kind of a litmus test for you to see if you are where you need to be. I see that I'm about 25 minutes, and so let's see, if y'all start class at 9:30, y'all got some time. Hopefully it didn't take a lot of time to put on the video. So these are the different types of boundaries that you need to know. So we have a defined boundary. A defined boundary is established by a legal document, super easy. We have a delimited boundary, which is one that is drawn on a map. We have a demarcated boundary, which is identified by physical objects. That's walls, signs, anything like that. A natural boundary, that's one that's formed by a physical boundary. A geometric boundary, which are straight lines drawn by people. And so a great example of this, if you look at the Oklahoma border, the panhandle of Oklahoma, that was just a straight line drawn by people. And then a cultural boundary. This is based on human traits or behaviors without an official boundary. And so defined, delimited, demarcated, natural, geometric, and cultural are the different types of boundaries. Let me scroll up, and these are the different types of states. I understand that this might be confusing for you. The best way to remember this is to have the definitions of nation and state like locked down in your mind. And so when I say a stateless nation or a multi-state nation or a multinational state, you are able to not get confused. You go, okay, I know what a state is and I know what a nation is, and you're able to kind of separate those. So nation states are countries made up of one nationality, okay? So obviously there's not one country or one nation out there that is made up of just one nationality, but those nationalities are like predominantly vast majority the race or nationality that is made up of that country. And so nation states would include Iceland or Japan. Those are two great examples. America is not a nation state. The United States, is a multinational state, which are countries that are made up of many nationalities. The United States and Canada are great examples of that. Next, we have a stateless nation, which are nationalities without a recognized home country. The best example of that is the Palestinians. We've talked a lot about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, also the Kurds. Think back to Once Brothers. That's a great example. And then finally, we have multi-state nations, which are nationalities that are spread among a few states. And so Koreans living in North and South Korea and also in the United States. Those are widely dispersed people that are surrounding multi-states, multi-nations, multi-state nations. Yeah. So the three things that unify or break up countries, you might say war, but I think war is a symptom of these three things. And so the first one is nationalism, a nation's desire to create its own state and then to expand that state, so nationalism. And then you have the centripetal or the centrifugal, y'all know I have trouble pronouncing, centripetal force or the centrifugal force. Can y'all, it's probably backwards for y'all. I'll spell it. Yes, I've got. It's my office. All right, so centripetal forces it unifies people within a state. And so religion, external threats, a common enemy, common language, those are centripetal forces. Those are easy to remember. Centrifugal, force. Centrifugal. Those are things that pull people apart in a state. And so that's different languages, religions, tensions, cultural differences. And so those are the two different forces that tear people together, as well as nationalism. Okay. So we are at 30 minutes. I'm going to let y'all go. Y'all's homework tonight, and you're going to see it on the assignments on Canvas. Hopefully you have your laptops with you, or you can do it at home, is to write 3 things that you need to review for Unit 4. And I'm going to compile those, and hopefully you'll have some differences and some similar, where I can go, okay, I didn't teach that enough, or, ooh, I need to go over that, or, we just need to have a big review day. So tomorrow I will record another video just like this with my response to your inquiries tomorrow, and I'll upload that to my YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. And if y'all have any questions, I am near my phone most of the day, and so I'm getting your reminds. Abby, thank you for messaging me today, about the assignment. And so I'm Canvas, remind, whatever, I'm there. I'm gonna text the virtual people and make sure that they're getting on there as well. Okay. If y'all have any questions, let me know. I miss y'all. I'll see y'all Monday. I guess I'll see y'all Friday on Zoom, but I'll see you Monday in person. I miss y'all. Yeah. Bye.